Sat down with one of Australia's most respected winemakers and an Australian winemaker of the year, Alex Cassegrain.
This is the important part.
He gave us a masterclass in how to properly taste any drink.
With whiskies, with beers, with whatever you want, coffees even, anything.
The difference is mind-blowing, and after this, we'll never drink the same way again.
You're not getting the full experience from it.
Welcome to Cassegrain.
Au vent, au voile, sur les flots de la vie, tu navigues, bouteille à la main, cœur léger, tu nous emmènes loin de tout souci. Entre les ronds de vigne, le temps s'arrête, les rires s'échappent, les cœurs se battent, le vin est notre lien.
This winery was actually opened in 1985, December of 1985, so we're going into our 40th year this year. But our family has got a long heritage of winemaking back in France, and my grandparents migrated here from France to Australia. My father had a passion for wine, and that's how it all started. So I did a short course in the Hunter Valley in cellar management and vineyard operations. I moved to Tasmania. Ended up living in Tassie for 2 years. I moved to France to work at a Premier Coup in Sauternes called
beautiful.
Chateau Guillaume.
So you speak fluent French then, do you?
Used to.
Parlez-vous français?
Oui, un petit peu.
Un petit peu?
Yeah. While I was there, they opted to put me through university, but I also applied for Adelaide University and I got accepted into that. So I moved back to Adelaide and lived there for 4 years while I studied university, and during university I went back to France and worked with a cooperage to make barrels in the summer break. And then once I finished university, then the opportunity was here because we had a winemaker that just resigned, and I've been here ever since.
Wow, so you're so qualified in what you're doing.
Yeah, so we all start with the raw product, we all end up with the end product.
Yes.
But how we get there, the journey of how we get there, and that's the part where the passion comes into it. If you don't have that, then
Yes.
you'll find that you get stuck by a recipe, and that's not the way we do things. So, we've always been very hands-on here, and we change things left, right and centre depending on how the grapes look. And you know, there might be opportunities there that you literally just thought of that you might want to trial and do something different, or create something a little bit more exciting, or do something different. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Au vent, au voile, sur les flots de la vie, tu navigues, bouteille à la main, cœur léger.
So I'm not trying to showcase this particular wine. But I do want to sort of explain something, and I think this is the important part. When you're looking at a wine, there's quite a few things that. So holding it up, well, a lot of people hold it up. It's more to do with the natural light. So natural light versus fluorescence do have an impact, but holding it up against, say, a white bit of paper gives you an idea of colour.
Okay.
All right. So that colour and the hue gives you a bit of an understanding as to the wine and the age. So the hue of the wine, which is that sort of bit on the shoulder, it's a bit hard to do with a rosé, mind you, can give you an indication as to how it's been aged. You know, is it a young wine, is it an older wine? The older the wine, the hue will change. So when you have a younger wine, it's nice crimson red or brick red. Then you go to an older wine, it could start turning into a sort of like a darker tinge to it, or even a brown. That can indicate a wine that's older.
Right.
Or a wine that's oxidized. But, so, you know, one of those things is colour. Now, colour is becoming it's not as an important factor, especially in the younger wines these days. So a lot of people, when they pour a wine, they're not really looking at the colour, other than when they pour it, they go, oh yeah. To them, it's the two big things. It's the way it smells and if you like it. Now, for what a lot of people do is when they first try a wine, is they just straight to the mouth. And to me, I think, and it's not just with wine, it can be with wine, with whiskey, with coffee, but understand why what you're trying to achieve in that. So a lot of people, when they come out to a restaurant, you know, it's like, okay, whoever ordered the wine does a little taste test, and then they go around and then pour the rest. So normally in that, you're trying to determine whether the wine's faulty or not. I.e., that's the whole thing came around with cork taint. So if you smell the wine and go, it's tainted, no, take it back, get a new one, refresh that glass, start again. Nowadays, with cork being less of a problem, it's still part of the romantic aspect and part of the process that I think to have that sort of process, I think it's just part of it, it's part of the magic. But when you're smelling it, you're trying to smell and you want to start that process because you're wanting to find out what makes up this wine. but there is a bit of a misconception between smell and taste. First thing is, the reason we do this is obviously for temperature. Now we've had this out for quite a while, so the temperature is probably sitting around that 13 to 14 degrees, which is pretty much ideal for white wine anyway. Pulling it out of a fridge at 4 degrees is probably a bit too cold.
Okay.
But it will warm up anyway once it goes in the glass. And
So can I just bring you back to that point? You've taken it out of the fridge or you've taken it out of the cupboard. Should you open it first or?
depending on the wine.
Okay.
So I'll come back to that one in a minute.
Okay.
But what you're trying to do with the aromatics is you're trying to smell what are the fruits or what are the characteristics of the wine that you're trying to smell, right?
Oh,
and everyone's going to be different. So you've got subjective and objective views. So your subjective views are ones that everyone will pretty much differ on. Well, they might be all on the same sort of profile, but they might be different. Whereas objective views are ones that we should all get. So what you see on the back of a label, in terms of its characteristics, so we don't really put, we put basics characters there, but they're the characters that are objective. They're the ones that a lot of people should.
I say citrus. Is there citrus in there?
Is there citrus? So I see rose petal. You know, I see rose
petal. Oh, I didn't pick up rose petal. I love rose petal as well.
Like to me, that's, you know, it's like a nice red rose. But so when you get into that, and that's actually a thing. I'm not sure if they put rose.
petal.
Oh yeah, it has got rose petal.
Oh, wow.
So it's good to actually read the label beforehand. It's not good.
No. Like if you're looking for a wine on the shelf, then it's probably the only thing you've got to determine whether you want to buy it or not. I get that. But if you're looking at a wine that's just come out, like you're looking at a restaurant and you say, okay, look at Shiraz or blah, blah, blah. Yep, you buy it. Have a look at it first and then have a look at the label. So what you're trying to do is, because this is where you can get, like I was talking about the whole bias thing before, and this is where you got to be really careful. So what you're trying to determine is if you like the wine or not, and if you like the characters. So if you're putting that to your nose and you're like, okay, I'm really enjoying the fruit profile, the primary fruits of X, Y, Z, and then you can also see a bit of something else in there. It could be, you know, buttery, biscuity, or honey, or depending on the wine. And then you go to look at that, because what you can sometimes get trapped in is when you first smell it, you're like, oh, I'm not really sure what I smell, and then you look at it and go, oh yeah, I can see that. A lot of people, whilst they may not be confident with having a look at a wine and smelling it and going, well, these are the characters I'm getting. Again, those objective ones are more or less ones that you can definitely agree with. The subjective ones are the ones that I might get that's different to yours. Now, the reason why that might be is...
You have an expert palate and I don't.
No, not so much that, because subjective is very much based on your own life. Like in terms of, you know, for me, some people, when we've had tried certain wines, they go, oh, it smells like lanolin. But they may have grown up on a sheep farm or whatever, so they're more attuned to that smell. When you're doing the smells, or the aromatics, you're smelling the wine and you're trying to determine where that wine sits in terms of aromatic profile, or what fruits are in there, or what aromatics are you smelling. But this is where it becomes quite tricky, because people will drink it and they perceive that, oh, I'm tasting apple, or I'm tasting this, that, and the other. What a lot of people don't realise is that what you're smelling and perceive to be tasting are actually the same thing. Now, I'll give you an example. So when you smelling that and you tasting it, you think there's a difference, right? Now, the only thing that's tricking you with that is the actual difference is texture, because your nose cannot smell texture. It can smell complexity, it can't smell texture. But on your palate, and that's why, so this whole perception of your tongue picks up on taste, it's actually more texture, sweet, sour, so that's why you get sweetness and acids and all that impact your mouth in different areas. So that's why it's really important tasting the wine, is because you're seeing where that weight is, you know, is it at the front, is it more a forward wine, is it a more a back wine, is it got length on it? That's why when you've got a blocked nose, you can't taste.
Yes.
You also can't smell.
No.
But if you were to, you know, smell this wine now, block your nose and taste it, you'll find that the only thing you're tasting is when you let go, you'll get those compounds there. But if you were to block your nose, you actually can't taste. You can get texture, you can go, oh, yep, it's acidic or it's sweet. That will still happen, but you can't actually, you're smelling, because it's all going past the olfactory region, and your smelling and tasting are actually more or less the same thing, and what your palate does, or your tongue, is determine texture. So knowing that, so that's where it comes into a role where you're trying to, so obviously aromatics is one thing, and then on your palate will be a whole new ball game depending on where that wine sits and what the winemaker may have done. The other thing is you need time for your palate to do it.
So how long should it sit on your palate before you actually swallow?
Don't need to be long, but I think a really good way for everyone to get used to or to trial. Now the first time you do it, it can be quite intense because it's something you've never done before. So the intensity is actually quite high. The more you do it, the more you get used to it. And you want to do it in a way that you can do it in a restaurant and not be completely obvious about what you're doing. So what you want to do is lean forward a bit to bring the wine to the front of your mouth and just try and suck a little bit of air through the wine that's in your mouth, and you'll feel that open up. And it's a bit like opening a wine. So when you pour a wine here, so if we're going to pour this wine, now without swirling it, just smell it. And this is what we're doing in our palate. So just pick it up and smell it. Right? Now if you do that versus give it a nice big swirl and then have another smell, it's a lot more intense.
It is.
Right? Now that's because you've covered the surface area.
Ah.
And so you're sort of opening that wine up. So when it's in your mouth, it's a very concentrated area. So when you're sucking a bit of air, you're opening that wine up within your mouth. So have a go at sucking a little bit of air through. So have it in your mouth and just lean forward and just...
Okay. And I go, that's delicious.
That's what we always hope. So the whole idea is just to try and...
Get the taste.
And it sort of really opens it up.
But you know how people swirl it around? Does that make any difference?
Look,
Or was that for TV?
I think that's a bit more for TV. And
Yeah.
it's a bit cringeworthy. And you do want it to come into contact with as much of your mouth as possible. Not like a dishwasher, and don't wash it around like it is that, but you want to be able to contact the whole tongue, but also other aspects. Because, you know, when you have a wine, if you just drink it and it just hits part of your tongue or not the whole lot, then you're not getting the full experience from it. Decanting works well, and sometimes it is the shape of the decanter. You get some decanters that are just there for show.
Oh yes, some beautiful shaped
and then
ones,
you get the ones that are really, you know, for that very reason, where you do get that wide bowl, that large surface area, and that way you can swirl it a bit, keep tasting it. I'm not sure I'm overly convinced on aerating a wine per se. I'm sure it has its place, and there are, you know, people like it, but I haven't done that many trials on them, to be honest. All right, so this is a Shiraz Viognier. Now it's a co-ferment, so we fermented Viognier with the Shiraz. And I'm just going to get some fresh glasses. So this one was not bottled all that long ago.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to watch you do it first.
So this one, it's going to have those characteristics of Viognier be a little bit more obvious. So it's quite a pretty aromatic style of wine. It is a bit cool. You just put it out of the fridge at 18 degrees. But compare that to a Shiraz, which I'll get in a minute, you'll see that where the differences lie. Softer style of palate, not overly tannic.
It's lovely.
And a lot of that impact is actually from the Viognier that we put in. Co-ferment.
Smooth.
Yep.
I couldn't use one of them.
So this is a 2018 Reserve Shiraz. So this is a much more complex style of wine. So it's a lot more oak driven.
You can smell it.
But it's a Shiraz, but it's come from multiple different regions because we like to promote multiple different regions. So this one's actually coming from Central Ranges, Hilltops and Canberra.
And who's the signature on the bottom, on the bottle? It's like somebody, John.
My father.
Oh, wow.
So the Canberra District Shiraz was handpicked and went through a partial carbonic maceration. So it's where you're fermenting it with the whole bunches as opposed to pulling
That's nothing like the Shiraz you get in the Hunter. This is just
No,
totally
this
different
is
altogether.
slightly different. Yeah.
It's beautiful. This isn't how I would perceive a Shiraz to be like. This is gorgeous.
But there's a bit of softness there, and
There is.
I attribute that coming a lot from the carbonic maceration.
What a special occasion, why that one?
Yeah. So,
We really were so grateful to Alex for spending so much time with us. And please look out for more videos sharing Alex's fascinating insights into Australian winemaking. Thank you for watching Lewis and Bonnie's Australia.